Hello, everyone. Welcome to the February edition of 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program. Over the next month, I'm going to take a deep dive into the role of human resources in fully operationalizing a best practices compliance program. Each day, I will pick up one topic with three key takeaways which you can utilize to improve, enhance, or upgrade your compliance program. This series of 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network. The reference check. Why is hiring so important to compliance? It is because hiring is important to any company's health and reputation. At this point, until the U.S. Supreme Court tells us that a corporation is the same as a human being with both obligations and rights, a company is only as strong as its employees. Like most areas of compliance and ethics, good hiring practices for those employees who will do business in compliance with anti-corruption laws, such as the FCPA, are simply good business practices. I have seen one industry estimate that it costs an average of $4,000 to replace a single employee. One survey of 2,500 companies found that one single bad hire can cost more than $25,000 in lost productivity, low morale, and the like. For one energy service company I worked for, the estimate went as high as $400,000 to hire and fully train a new employee. I would add those costs go up significantly if a bad hire violates the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act or some other law. As far back as 2004, in Opinion Release 0402, the Department of Justice realized this was an important part of an overall compliance program when it approved the proposed compliance program that had the following requirement: clearly articulated procedures which ensure that discretionary authority is not delegated to persons who the company knows have a propensity to engage in illegal or improper behavior. One tool that is often overlooked in the hiring process is the reference check. Many practitioners feel that it is not a tool of value because prospective candidates will only list references that they believe will provide a glowing recommendation of character. This leads to a pro forma reference check. However, in a Harvard Business Review article, author Kevin Ryan exploded this misconception by detailing how he views the entire hiring process, specifically including reference checks. I would add it can be a very valuable and useful tool for you and your compliance program. In the hiring of personnel, Ryan detailed the 3 steps a company should take: 1, resume review; 2, in-person interview; and 3, reference checks. Ryan believed that resumes are good for establishing the basic qualifications for the job, but not much else. He believes that the primary problem with in-person interviews is that they are skewed in favor of the person who are well-spoken or present well. For Ryan, the key check, though, is the reference check. And he says references are really the only way to learn things about prospective employees. Ryan recognizes that many people believe reference checks are not of great value because companies cannot or will not give out much more information than confirming dates of employment. However, he also believes the way is to dig up people who will speak candidly. He also recognized that if you only speak to the references listed on a resume or other application, you may not receive the most robust appraisal. Ryan responded that the answer is to put in the work to check out the references properly. Ryan believes this is one of the key strengths of search firms and that companies should emulate this practice when it comes to the reference check. He noted that anyone who's worked in an industry for any significant length of time will have made such connections. Invariably, some of these connections will be acquainted with you or those in your current and former employer. Ryan provided the following example. A longtime friend who is employed at another company called and asked and said that he had been asked by his hiring partner to find out the real story on a hiring candidate by asking Ryan his candid opinion of the candidate. Ryan's response was very simple: don't hire him. Lest you think that such refreshing honesty no longer exists when informal references are provided, you are sadly mistaken. In my most past corporate position, I was charged with performing compliance due diligence on senior executives, and I spent time doing exactly what Ryan's suggesting, calling my acquaintances that I knew and asking such direct questions. Fully 75% of the time, I got direct responses. Ryan believes that you must invest your company in the hiring process to get the right people. The same is true in compliance. You do not want people with a propensity for engaging in corrupt acts working for, or even worse, leading your company. Moreover, the failure to prevent such hires can be evidence of non-effective compliance program and the lack of appropriate commitment to compliance at your organization should the regulators ever come knocking. The hiring of someone who will perform business activities in compliance with anti-corruption laws will continue to be as much art as science, because the hiring of quality employees for senior management positions is similarly situated. But that does not mean a company cannot work to hire those persons who might have a propensity to engage in bribery and corruption if the situation presented itself. The hiring process is one more tool that can be utilized to build an effective and, more importantly, fully operationalized compliance program. So what are today's 3 key takeaways? Well, number 1, the hiring process is only a step in operationalizing your compliance program, but it's the first step. Number 2, the Department of Justice has long recognized hiring as a best practice for compliance programs going back as far as 2004. And number 3, always remember that reference checks are an underutilized part of the hiring process and a key internal control for human resources. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the role of HR in a best practices and fully operationalized compliance program on the February edition of 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program. 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network. Thanks so much for listening.